Parents, welcome back to the Parenting Athletic Kids podcast. I think this is going to be a lot of fun today. Hopefully, some really good information and some good tools you can take, conversations you can have with your son or daughter going forward based on what we talk about here today. First of all, Paul Weidner, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you again.
Thank you. This is going to be a good topic for us to get into. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, and I'm super excited to hear kind of your thoughts on this, and we'll take it where it takes us. So, parents, what we're talking about today is kind of a next level. We talk a lot about conversations you can have with your son or daughter, tools you can give them, things you can help them with, or hopefully not hurt them with. But we want to dive a little bit deeper into the mind here today. So what we want to talk about is where beliefs come from. So when your son or daughter goes to the free throw line, what do they believe to be true about themselves in that moment? When they're stepping up to the plate in the bottom of the seventh inning with 2 outs and bases loaded, what do they believe to be true about themselves in that moment? Do they believe that moment is exciting, is fun, they're grateful to be there, or are they anxious, scared, nervous, etc.? So we want to talk about where those beliefs come from, and then how we as parents can help potentially change the beliefs that our son or daughter has in themselves and in those situations. So let's get into it. Paul, where do you want to lead off with this? I'm thinking let's talk a little bit about where beliefs come from, the subconscious mind, and then we'll get into how we can alter those beliefs.
Yeah.
You jump in.
For sure. So when I think about what brings people to the moment of, they're at the free throw line, and are they excited for that? Do they believe that that's something they should look forward to as an opportunity versus what are they scared of? You can work that all the way back into the ways that the individual is set up from both like a nature and nurture standpoint. So there's that nature nurture that people call it a debate, but I think it's very universally understood that's not really a debate about whether or not human beings are all a product of nature or all nurture. It's always going to be a combination of both of those things. And so the nature side of it, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. It's kind of what you're bringing to the table to begin with. But then the nurture side of it is a combination of experiences and relationship dynamics that that person is experiencing throughout the course of their life. So experience that we could think of to draw it directly to this this topic of sports would be, when they get to a place where let's say they strike out and the car ride home is really difficult because you are either being really hard on them, like really aggressively, or kind of bugging them about it, or just some of the things that maybe even you don't realize are a little bit damaging in the conversation. We try to be good with the tools that we give you on how to actually go about those conversations with your athlete. And they view those experiences then as something they should be nervous about when they get to 2 strikes, because they're thinking to themselves, well, if I strike out again, like this compounding events that I know I've experienced in the past is exactly why I should be more nervous when I get to 2 strikes, or I should be more nervous when I'm at the free throw line because all I hear is that free throws are so easy and how could you possibly miss those shots? Like those are things that lead us to those moments of how do they feel emotionally or subconsciously when they're actually in that spot. And so for us as parents and the relationship dynamics that we have with our kids, we are the inner circle for our kids. We are the closest thing to them that they're going to have and the most impactful relationship that they have. And so we have to be very aware of the fact that we have the ability to create one way or another core memories and core experiences for that individual. And that's any person that gets close and gets into the inner ring with any, other individual. Your reactions and actions are going to be very impactful on them one way or another, sometimes even more so than maybe you realize. So to try to think back to like where they're coming from when some of that anxiety happens, it's good to maybe look at the way that we're creating those experiences for them. How are we influencing their mindset one way or another? Are we encouraging a process-oriented mindset, or are we encouraging an outcome-oriented mindset that they should be scared to fail? And so I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but that's kind of where I think of all the things that lead up to that point: experiences, and relationship dynamics from a nurture standpoint brings us to this belief system that we have at the moment of performance, one way or another.
I think that don't think you rambled on at all. That was awesome. I think you said a lot of cool stuff, but I liked a lot of it, but I really like core memories.
Hmm.
So when we're in the nurture part of it, and as parents, we're talking to our sons or daughters, and we make a big deal out of whatever the result, the situation was. When we make a big deal out of that, it goes into our son or daughters. I like that a lot. Core memories or subconscious. And that comes out again next time they go to the free throw line. Their subconscious automatically goes to a fear state, an anxious, an anxiety, whatever it might be state, because they remember how much it hurt last time. And it comes up automatically, right? This defense mechanism, this fear mechanism comes up out of their subconscious. A lot of times they're not even aware of it. It might have been something that happened 5 years earlier. Now they're in the same situation, and boom, fear strikes because their subconscious remembers the emotional baggage that came along with it, how they felt in that situation. So parents, be really aware. And I think Paul said a great thing, but also Paul said, make sure we're as parents not adding to that emotional baggage. When they strike out, how was the process? How did it go? Other great things you did, not making a big deal out of it. But also we have to aware, it might not even be us, right? It might be they're attaching certain emotions to it even before they get in the car or before we even talk to them. So having great conversations about, how was that game for you? Was it fun? Did you enjoy it? Were there things that you didn't enjoy? And really kind of helping them work through those emotions. Any thoughts on that? On like how, again, I think it's pretty upfront, and we've talked a lot about car rides home and stuff about trying to stay away from attaching even more emotion to the situation, making them feel worse. We know we don't want to do that. Sometimes we do, but we know we don't want. But how can we be more aware, do you think, of what our sons or daughters are going through? I'm going to throw this out. I was just talking to Paul about this. When my older son Will was at Arizona State, uh, something bad happened, and I just found this out a few days ago. He had a bad emotional attachment to that. And he's carried that with him for quite a while. And I didn't even know about it. I think if I would have known about it, we would have worked back through it and tried not to. Well, we'll get into that in a second, how we can work through that. But any thoughts about how we can be more aware if our son or daughter is getting very emotional about a situation?
Yeah. Do your best to read it ahead of time, obviously, but I think about this just as kind of an analogy, and this is gonna seem like it's putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the parents to have to be perfect at all times, and you certainly don't have to, but the pressure of parenthood is obviously real, and we all experience it. But one of the best coaches I ever had a chance to coach with, his name was Jerry Weinstein. He talked about um, how there's 200 between 200 and 300 pitches in any given baseball game, and almost every high level baseball game is determined by three or less of those pitches if you are able to work it backwards from there. And the unfortunate part, or the urgency kind of creating part, is that you don't know ahead of time which three of those 300 it's going to be. You have to be ready for every single one of them. So always be focused every single pitch. From a core memory standpoint, or core experiences standpoint, I think that as you're working through things with your child, they're going to have hundreds and hundreds of experiences and conversations with you and interactions with you. And you don't always know which ones are absolutely going to stick with them as far as something they remember as their truth for a long time. And that seems like there's a lot of pressure on you to be perfect every single time. And I'm not trying to like come across that way, but just understand that it's not always obvious which one of them they're going to internalize as the thing. So just do your best on a regular basis to have a ton of empathy for your athlete, and come at it from a place of Like my own opinion as a parent on the matter does not matter as much as the way that I'm supposed to be supporting them and being their steadiness as opposed to their, I got to be coached by them or I got to be influenced by them. We hear this all the time from parents where they say there comes a certain age in which the kid no longer listens to mom and dad as the coach. We hear this all the time. And so their parent then is looking to give them an experience where they have a different hitting coach or a different baseball coach that's not mom or dad, and that's totally fine. I think the reason for that is because it can be difficult at times for the that very inner circle to be the one that's also able to be so critical of you because they're relying on you to be very like a very steady influence on them while also trying to work through with them. You keep swinging at breaking balls in the dirt and you need to change this and you need to do this. A coach most likely resides in one more ring out. So inner circle, inner ring is family, parents. Coach is probably the next one out. A good coach probably is the next one out. It's a lot easier to let that person in on the X's and O's and the critique of the athlete than it is for the people that are really close to the sun, really close to that athlete. And that's not always how the relationship dynamic plays out. A lot of athletes love getting coached by their parents. But we do see that a lot. And so you need to know whether or not your athlete, I think, can be someone that handles yep, I can critique my son in a very critical way and not have it be something that's anxiety producing. Or do I need to be the one that says your coach is going to do the coaching stuff? I'm just here to support you and be your foundation so that when you're on that roller coaster, you can get off the roller coaster and I'm the platform you're standing on. I'm not going to add to that roller coaster. And so that was a couple of different ways of answering that question or a couple of different things to look out for. But it's certainly part of the dynamic on a regular basis when it comes to parent child relationships in the sport dynamic.
That's awesome. And I also thought of when you were saying 200 to 300 pitches a game, and just again to use Will, my older son, as an example, all the games he's played, all the innings, all the pitches. I, as a parent, I'm not trying to be aware of all those.
Mhm.
But was it what we would consider like a high leverage situation? Did something go wrong? In that seventh inning with the bases loaded and 2 outs, did he or she miss a big free throw? That might be where you want to pay attention. Those times where it seems like it impacted the team and the game and them more. Like we don't have to pay attention to the second inning with nobody. I don't think they're going to attach that much emotion to a strikeout in the second inning of a 0-0 baseball game as they are to a strikeout in the seventh inning with the bases loaded.
Mhm.
So you can kind of be aware of that. It's not 98% of the time they're not attaching a lot of emotion and creating those core memories. I love that, as Paul said. But be aware, raise our awareness in that 2% of the time, and be sure that we're that rock that Paul talks a lot about in that situation, not making a big deal out of it, um, and trying to move on from there. So next piece, Paul, we are aware our son or daughter um, has some core memories that are maybe affecting them negatively.
Mhm.
This is a year later they're coming up to bat in that same situation, and we can see they're they're having some, for lack of a better term, maybe you got a better one, like flashbacks. You can't actually see it, but you'll know if they're doing things different than they usually do it, or
Yep.
they're now stepping to the free throw line the next game and their form looks wonky and they look extra nervous.
Mhm.
At that point, once we've realized, hey, there might be something going on here, some core memories created something in their subconscious mind that's created some bad feelings around this situation. What can we do at that point as parents? How can we help?
Yep. This is very tough. I think that a lot of times we are hopeful that a more surface level answer can be the answer to something that requires a lot more digging than that. And digging sometimes is hard conversations. Digging sometimes is um, just knowing what are the right questions to ask to like get at that level that can actually make that change. Um, I believe that's one of the things that you and I as mental performance coaches have to be really great at is getting to that level that can make change versus, YouTubing another what's a breathing routine I can do in the batter's box. Like I believe that's important, but let's be honest, you would just use YouTube then if that was all you needed, right?
Right.
So it's like how can you get to the depth needed to actually make change? And so there's a million different variations of it, but just understand like if you're trying to um, put a band-aid over something that needs an antibiotic instead, like you're going to continue to have the band-aid over the top, which might be better than it being totally exposed, but you have to get at the actual, thing that's causing it. Um, the good news about that is that you being as close to them as they are, or close to them as you are, you should be able to know your athlete well enough to help guide those questions and see if you can get to it. So they'll actually say like, yeah, like every time I'm thinking about it being two strikes, like I think about the time that my coach got like laid into me really, really hard after I struck out. And I just am trying to avoid that. Like I'm being very failure avoidant instead of opportunistic at the plate. And even just getting to that place is like, oh, that feels good to just like get that off my chest. And now we can talk through that a little bit more. Um, but without knowing how deep you need to dig or what questions you need to ask, they can think those solutions are going to work, but oftentimes they won't unless you're at that level needed. So that's not, I don't think I actually directly answered the question you asked but other than just saying like, there's depth to this that you have to be able to get to.
Yeah, no, no, it's hard. There's yeah, that's um again what we've studied doing and have some experience at it. But I do think a couple things, parents. Um, and this is the band-aid stuff, and we talk about a process and a breath and a focal point, focusing on controllables. That's where you can start. Okay. You get to two strikes. Where are you going to place your attention? Where are you going to place your focus? You get to the free throw line. Where are you going to place your attention? What kinds of thoughts do you want to have? You want to have positive thoughts, um, all those kinds of things. And maybe that works. So I'm going to use an example. I worked with the client this morning. I told Paul this. He's been doing live at bats and doing having a lot of success on live at bats. A live at bat being just there's a hitter, a pitcher, and a catcher. No fielders. It's not a scrimmage, not a game. It's just you and the pitcher. And he's had a lot of success. And then he goes into games and doesn't have nearly as much success. So I asked him, do you have your same process, your same routines when you switch from live to the games? Yep. Same routine, same process. And I go, what do you think's going on there? Well, the games are a bigger deal. Okay, so he's framing it as the games are a bigger deal when actually he just wants to take the same process and thoughts and how he's seeing it from the live at bats to the game. So once if you work through that process and controls and they still feel nervous, they still feel, then let's talk about it. Are you feeling something? How are you feeling when you step to the free throw line? How are you feeling when you get to two strikes? How are you feeling when the bases are loaded? And if they say, I'm really nervous, I remember that one time, again, this gets a little bit tricky, so I want to try to keep it not getting too tricky, but let's go back. Let's talk about that time a little bit where you missed that free throw. And then we can actually create some new thoughts around that. Was it that big of a deal? You know what? You guys played again 2 days later. Why does missing that free throw carry so much weight and so much emotion and so much baggage? Well, I disappointed my team. Well, you had 49 other minutes where there was rebounds missed. So trying to help the athlete reframe their emotions around that situation. And again, it's pretty complex and maybe you feel overwhelmed by that. Um, but give it a shot. What's it going to hurt? And you're not trying to necessarily walk them back through all the emotions. Okay. If they want to get into the motions, well, I felt crappy when I missed that strikeout. Okay. How could you have felt better coming out of that? What are some good things? Did you learn from that? What are some good things that came out of that? So just again, trying to reframe. I don't know if that was helpful, Paul. You're anything to add to that? Again, you're not trying to create this. You certainly don't want to walk them through it and bring it to the forefront of their mind
Yep.
and leave it at that. You want to bring it back out and then reframe it, adjust it, show them, help them to understand that it wasn't life or death. They've learned from it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the next time the same thing is going to happen. So those are a couple maybe ways, hopefully ways to help in this situation. Anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, reframing it is huge because that, you know, mental or physiological response that we have in that spike in heart rate and that spike in anxiety when we're at the free throw line based on some things that have happened, that's actually a very good protective, human trait that we have because the brain is trying to protect us from having repeat experiences of something that's bad. If it was, hundreds of years ago and we came up to a cave and we went into the cave and there was a bear in there that could eat us, it'd be really nice if our brain would remember that the next time around and be like, I don't know if I want to go in there, right? So, like, it's actually a really good thing that our brains do that. But the reframing part is trying to make it so the brain no longer feels like it has to protect us from something. And so
Love it.
that's why it's not bringing it to the forefront again and saying, I want you to experience it again. It's bringing it to the forefront again and unpacking all of the ways in which, even if it happened again, you still don't have something to be afraid of this time around. So we
Right.
all can settle down and we all can experience that same situation next time in a very different way.
Really good. Really good. And I think you just let me just touch on something you just added to what I had said. Even if we can't go back and change how we feel about it, if we bring it to the forefront and say, you know what, the next time I'm in that situation, I'm going to place my focus on my breath, or I'm going to understand that I'm going to learn and grow from this. Like now, two things can happen, or two things can be true here. We reframe the memory, but we also get ourselves ready, more ready for the next time it comes up. You know what? It isn't life or death. I'm not facing that bear in that cave. It's going to be all right. I'm going to play 10,000 more basketball games or whatever it might be. So finding ways to move forward from it is also, thank you for that. Super,
Yeah.
super powerful, super useful.
Good.
Awesome. I think we got it. Anything you'd want to leave us with, touch it off here with?
No, I think that was great. I think sometimes we go into things with a ton of depth and like it gets pretty deep and this is one of those episodes and sometimes it's a little bit more just tools based and stuff like that. So there's a variation in what we do, but I really liked getting into the weeds on this one and talking through that. That was fun.
Love it. Love it. And parents, hopefully you got something out of that, understood that. If you have questions, feel free to email me, mindrighttraining@gmail.com. We're going to start a new podcast. So we've been throwing them up on here for the athletes and just saying this one's for the athletes on the Parenting Athletic Kids podcast. But I'm going to start a new podcast for the athletes. It's called Get Your Mind Right. And that's where Paul and I are going to talk to the athletes. Generally, we're going to talk about this same topic for the athletes this week. It might be different topics. It might be the same topic, but if you've got an athlete that's following this, or maybe could follow it, lead them to Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and it'll be up there. Get Your Mind Right podcast. So let your son or daughter know. Give that a follow, and I'll have it on Twitter and Instagram and all those other places as well. So awesome. Thanks again, Paul. We'll see you again really soon.
Yep. See you soon. Thank you.